If we will humble ourselves to take another look at the cross, and if we'll let the lens of our life be refocused through that point of view, then it brings hope back into focus, and it brings hope back in as an option, and not just an option, but as a reality.
Welcome to the Christian Music Archive podcast, conversations about Christ, community, and music. I'm your host, Dave Maurer. Each week, I am privileged to chat with a musical guest who is listed on the pages of the Christian Music Archive. There are thousands of creative men and women who have helped shape the soundtrack of the Christian faith, and we get to hear their stories, learn about how Christ has made a difference in their life, and hopefully along the way, we'll learn how we can be a better part of our community. Today I sit down with two of the founding members of the band Smalltown Poets. We're going to hear how God brought these guys together and how their relationship has gone beyond making music together, but also how they seek God's direction together, both in their personal lives and professional lives. Smalltown Poets formed in 1996 in Atlanta, Georgia, and they've released 8 albums and a couple of Christmas projects together. Their first major label album even earned a Grammy nomination. But as you hear them share their story, it is not about the awards or the album sales. They are seeking to follow God in their music careers and in their personal lives. But why am I telling you about all this? Let's let them share their story in their own words. So let's welcome to the podcast Danny Stevens and Michael Johnston from the Smalltown Poets.
Hi, thanks
Hello.
for having us.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, it's exciting. You guys are, I just realized, celebrating 25 years together.
That's impossible. We're not that old.
Oh,
That's
I'm sorry. That was a misprint then.
a clerical error of some kind.
Yeah. Your first album came out at about 96, if I remember. How did you guys kind of decide to be a band and get started?
Well, this is Michael, and Danny and I went to high school together. We met in a creative writing class our sophomore year in high school, right towards the end of that year. And over the summer, we both turned 16 and started connecting a little bit around music. And it was Christian music that really sparked that friendship and some common interests there. And Danny had been writing songs just, for a number of years, and had, been playing in some local churches and whenever he had an opportunity to. So we talked about what it would look like to play music together. I played bass guitar and sang a little bit, although I don't think that I came out talking about singing as much as I did just playing bass guitar. So we just kind of forged a friendship around trying to pursue our relationship with God as teenagers in high school, and also begin to express ourselves through this new thing as we understood it, which was Christian rock music. That was a little bit more like the kind of music we liked to make than hymns were per se. Loved
Right.
the richness of the language of the hymns, but we liked our guitars and keyboards and and wanted to lean into that.
So what were your musical influences? I mean, you met in high school and did you play in like bands and stuff there, or was it just a connection through your writing class?
Well, it's funny that you would bring that up, because I'm sitting here looking at my inscription in Michael's yearbook from that year, because he just sent me a screenshot of it the other day. And I tell him to keep his eyes on the Lord and you'll go far, and keep singing quartet music. And the funny thing about that is he was doing something with this, playing bass and singing or whatever he was doing with this quartet. But he's the one that exposed me to a lot of different rock bands and stuff. And then I was playing him, Michael, you correct me if I have this wrong, but I was playing him a bunch of the Christian rock that my brother turned me on to, like Petra and Whiteheart and Amy Grant and the Imperials. Man, that all just came together for us in the form of, no, we had not really been playing in any rock bands, but we just kind of started to piece it together, and it wasn't easy at first. We did our first concerts without an electric guitar player, but we considered ourselves a rock band, which made no sense, really. But
And
eventually
we're not thinking 80s pop rock either. It's before.
No. Right, right. But we eventually found a guitar player and yeah, kind of started to find our way musically.
So I think it's really important, and it's interesting because what's kind of coming out already is we were, as teenagers pursuing faith and relationship with Jesus, we had this point of view because of the way we were raised as what was music that was acceptable for the church and what wasn't.
Right.
And some of it was implicit, some of it was explicitly said. So, yeah, I was playing bass guitar in a Southern gospel quartet. I think we need to even qualify that further, Danny.
Sure.
So that was the kind of music that I was related to, that I was aware of growing up. That was sort of not hymns, and it was kind of entertainment, but it was also acceptable spiritually and could be used in the church. So
Right.
that started us off on a quest to answer a lot of those questions for ourselves as teenagers.
So were you guys feeling like what you were doing musically together was rebellious because it's not the Southern gospel and it's not the hymns?
Well, Dave, we might not have used that word, but
Right.
others around us were using that word quite a
Yep.
bit.
Yep, for sure. For sure. And it was really obvious. It was not subtle. I mean, we had friends that were upset that we would dare bring drums and guitars into the church.
Yeah.
Uh, and we had pastors in the area that were not happy with what we were doing. And I hearken back to the fact that my dad, and Michael knows this story, but my dad he was in a group in college, and they faced all the same scrutiny and the same disapproval, even though their music was Southern gospel back in the 60s. So it's a generational, I mean, it just, history repeats itself for sure.
Well, it seems like there's always, I heard an interview recently with somebody saying that people are always working to make their music in the worship of the Lord speak the language that they were. I mean, we're talking with older people who the Beatles were their influence and they were trying to figure out how to bring the Beatles into Christian music. And so you guys are getting started. Where do you play if you're getting this pushback from pastors and stuff? Where are you guys able to perform?
Well, that's one of the beautiful things about this part of our story, I think, in relation to uh, how we would then begin learning how to relate to God. Um, we, we weren't welcomed into some of the places that were familiar to us, but locally there were other churches that were open to what we were doing. They were open to the songs that at that time Danny was writing and singing, and a couple of us other friends were, kind of building a band around that, and they were open to allowing us to come in, um, play on a Sunday night, play for their youth group, things like that. So we started learning um, from people that had different beliefs and faith practices than we did. And at that point in our lives, it was pretty huge part of our discipleship, because we were encountering these things and then going to Scripture and saying, okay, this is what we've learned growing up. These are the things that uh, both of these expressions of faith seem to have in common. Here are the things that seem to be a little bit different, maybe not exclusive,
Right.
mutually exclusive of each other, but they're different ways of looking at things, different ways of looking at the expressions of worship, different ways of emphasizing different parts of what it looks like to be a Jesus follower. And it really broadened and deepened our walk with Jesus.
So would you say that that was a collective growth, or was it something you had individually that you brought together and kind of spurred things on?
It kind of felt like we were all growing together because we were doing a lot of the same events and church services together, and really beyond that, we were doing a lot of the same Bible studies together. We used to have band Bible studies or go to different retreats and Bible studies together. So, and we were just kind of all in the same place because the way the band was at that moment, the lineup changed years later when we officially became Smalltown Poets. But in high school, the three of us who would be in Smalltown Poets, as it eventually was known, we were all raised in the church, and I mean, really ensconced in all the music and the theology. And we were just all kind of in the same place, and we weren't, thankfully, jaded. We were ready to grow, I felt like, and we really leaned on each other a lot and grew together. Wouldn't you agree with that, Michael?
Yeah, I think it was a both and. Had we not had that community, it might have been more difficult. I am an introvert. If you acknowledge this whole idea of being on kind of a continuum that prefers introversion or prefers extroversion, I tend to process things internally a good bit. I tend to uh, be okay and refresh and recalibrate, with solitude. But it takes that extroverting of ideas and thoughts sometimes to get outside of yourself as an
Mm-hmm.
introvert and be able to have a sounding board, be able to hear your ideas coming back at you and see how they sound coming back at you with good listeners in your life. And I think we were blessed with being good listeners for each other and being able to uh, sit and learn together, ask questions together, disagree,
Mm-hmm.
sometimes not speak to each other for a day or two. And so it was, as individuals, we were confronting these things, wrestling with these things, because each of us were different persons.
Yeah.
But together, being able to have that community aspect, which I think the gospel calls us to work out our salvation and to work out our faith in community.
Yeah.
I think it's a both and.
Well, I'm interested that you bring up the word community because that's a big part of what this podcast is about is learning how to build community. And I'm kind of jumping forward in the story a little bit because you guys 25 years later are scattered across the country and yet you're still working together as a band. How does that community, for the band at least, continue on with distance?
Well, technology is still a big part of our story. It was sort of new sounds and new ideas that were coming along at the beginning of our story, and the technology that we have in terms of being able to connect, you know, with video conferencing, with being able to send music files, and work in the recording process, the creative process. In It's actually made it easier for us
Hmm.
in some ways to have that kind of shared community where we're still exchanging ideas, we're still creating together, and then even an app like, I don't know if I can do a plug for Marco Polo, but an app like that, where we're able to have our little group where it's just easy to pop in and do a little video update, ask a question, check in, say something silly. Our friendships have kind of kind of continued on in some pretty great ways, even in this past year or two when we started using things like that. But yeah, the creative process has actually been improved with technology, and it hasn't taken over and redefined how we work together really.
Mm-hmm.
It's just helped us, I think, be able to focus on our strengths a little bit more. But yes, we are friends. We enjoy each other, and we enjoy spending time with each other. So there are the times when we are together with we're in the same room at the same time,
Yeah.
and our agenda is to write together and record together. Sometimes it's hard to get on task because we're just having too much fun.
I'm always interested because a lot of times we get into communities that are purposeful. The small town poets community is a community for music and for the ministry that God has called you to. But I'm also very interested in the fact that that community spills out into other parts of our life. How would you say being a band with the purpose of music has helped you guys individually through your lives outside of music?
Well, I like how Michael has said that we're better fathers and we're better sons and we're better people. We're better at everything because of our relationships with each other. I know this sounds a little over the top and corny, but we do. We not only have had these conversations, but it actually worked itself into a song. The last song on our record, "Say Hello," that came out in 2018.
Mm-hmm.
That song is about how the band formed. Some of what we've been talking about with you, and it is about how iron sharpens iron and how we're better at all these phases of our lives because we sharpen each other. And it doesn't have to be a band. It can just be, those. We all need those friendships. We all need that close community. And I don't just mean the church community, which I'm a huge believer of. I love my church, and
Sure.
that's great. But a tighter community of a few guys, a few people that you can lean on heavily and do life with. It really does make a difference. It has for us.
Yeah, and I would add to that you know we do consider ourselves brothers,
Mm.
and we are good friends, enjoy spending time with each other, but we're all a part of communities that are rooted locally where we are.
Yeah.
All of us are involved in our local church, and what's happened is the things that I've learned from being in community with Danny and Byron and Miguel and Kevin and other guys that have been out on the road with us, road managers and audio guys. We're still in touch with all of these people, and what we've learned is just what it takes to help create that where we are. And so it's put us into places where we can be advocates for that where we are. We can pass along from our experience. And the thing that's good for us is that we can point to different seasons in life where what's happened in Smalltown Poets has helped us create pockets of community where we were at that point in our lives. And so we've established different kinds of relationships with people along and along. We have all of that to draw on and learn from as we continue to grow.
Part of being part of a bigger community of Christ is that what we learn in certain areas is very beneficial in other areas too. I like the way you guys have stated that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, let's jump back in time a little bit. So you guys are a band, and I wrote it down. I'm not finding it in my notes. You're not Smalltown Poets yet, but how did you guys decide or get discovered, I guess, by my Forefront and get signed to get you down the path to, hey, now we're a touring band more than just regionally?
Well, and you can edit as much of this out as you'd like, but to maybe give a little bit more context. So Danny and Byron's our drummer. The three of us in high school did start a band. I stepped up as a singer. Danny and I shared vocals for a while, and then eventually I kind of stepped out front more as a singer. And so we added a couple of guys to the mix, and that band became a band called Villanelle. And Villanelle, through a very roundabout way, got signed to an independent label, actually as an imprint of that independent label, and had a record that was released.
Okay.
So we got a little bit of a glimpse and trial by fire, on the job training, so to speak, in terms of being a band with a little bit more of a national platform.
Okay.
We had been traveling for years and had a regional platform and had been relatively successful booking ourselves independently from coast to coast and just getting experience doing it. Nobody told us we couldn't do it.
Yeah.
So we just did it.
Yeah.
And
trial by fire, right?
Exactly. So we were on the road pretty extensively even before Smalltown Poets became a
Very
band.
cool.
And so we experienced a little bit of the life cycle of what it could look like to be playing with a group of guys, and life circumstances just dictate that had its end.
Okay.
And so in 96, I think you mentioned that date already. In 96 is when Smalltown Poets came together with the five guys that have been Smalltown Poets since then. But three of us had been playing together for a number of years before that.
So how did you get connected with Kevin and Miguel? Because they weren't local to you guys at the time, right?
That's correct. That's correct. The funny thing is, Miguel actually was from Atlanta, grew up in Puerto Rico till he was about 12 or 13, but had been living in Atlanta, kind of raised there, and ended up moving to Nashville. And that's where we found him, not in Atlanta where we all lived. Uh, but we came to a crossroads, Michael and I did, where we felt like we just had to implement some real change and either restart, reboot everything. There were a couple of band members leaving, or just move on to something else and just do something else entirely. So we decided to make a demo, and we found a bass player and guitar player in Nashville. That's just a very short version of the story, believe me, because it took a while for all this to come together and different players and potential players and auditions. But it's great because it's these five guys that are Smalltown Poets now, still recording, still writing, still playing concerts. It's the five guys that we landed on in 1990, whatever it was,
And that's
six.
pretty incredible in today's music market.
Yeah, it really is. And there's been guys come and go. There have been guys that quit touring or aren't on this album and aren't on this record or on this tour. But for the last 10 or 11 years, it's been back to the original lineup. And that's a real blessing.
Yeah.
Really been cool.
And Dave, that aspect of community is what led us to be able to connect with Kevin and Miguel. We were introduced to those guys by people that we were striking up friendships with, and that it was it was really cool, a really cool time to meet some guys that had a great level of talent, yes, and a lot to offer, but also were passionate about the same things we were passionate about.
Yeah.
That had growing relationships with Jesus to the point where we could all kind of lock in step together and continue on as a group.
So the five of you got together before Forefront found you, or before you found Forefront?
Definitely.
Yes.
Yeah. We had played. The five of us had been out playing shows for some time. We did a demo in Nashville of 4 or 5 songs, and we were traveling. We were traveling all over the country as Smalltown Poets for several months, maybe even a year. I don't remember the chronology of it. When that demo made it into the right hands, and we finally started talking to a few record labels.
So how surreal was it for you guys? I mean, you guys have been, paying your dues, putting the miles on the van, probably all sleeping in the same van, eating French fries and McDonald's and whatever.
So were you in a band, Dave? I mean, that's pretty exactly spot on. That seems like you're speaking from experience.
I have. I've worked with a lot of bands who have come up to the concert venue in a van, pulling a trailer full of stuff, and yeah, I've seen that. But how surreal was it for you guys? And kind of walk me through what you guys went through when your debut album on Forefront gets a Grammy nomination. I mean, that's huge.
Yes, it was huge. And Miguel and I were out in Utah on a little snow skiing trip on a break from touring, and we got a phone call from Eddie DeGarmo, and I was like, Eddie doesn't usually call, any of his bands, much less us. And he's like, "Hey, yeah, I just wanted to be the first to congratulate you on your Grammy nomination." And it was unexpected, completely surreal in that sense of just, it was the last thing on our minds
Sure.
at that time. But an incredibly good feeling. And I won't go into detail about the whole Grammy nominating process, but just by nature of how that whole thing is set up, it carried some weight to us, and it felt like so much of what we had been doing over the years had been seen and was being appreciated and validated.
Do you feel like that nomination changed the direction you guys were going, or was it, like you said, just a confirmation that you were going the right direction?
Very much a confirmation and of the things that we had been doing and who we were. Danny may have a different perspective, but I don't think that any of us really looked at it as a turning point for going a different direction, rethinking things.
It was it sounds so cliche to say it, but you could see that the Lord's hand was at work in the timing of everything, and that it was His confirmation that Michael and I indeed weren't supposed to throw in the towel, but we were supposed to reboot. And it's kind of like the Lord recharged our batteries. There was a fresh thing happening, and we just felt like a real peace and excitement about doing this thing as Smalltown Poets and doing it with those guys at Forefront Records and Ardent Records. Oh, and a lot of that was about the personnel. I mean, there were lots of labels we were talking to, but it was really clear that we were supposed to work with these particular people, and it really worked beautifully together, those relationships. And as a matter of fact, we went the last full length record, the one that's being mixed right now, notwithstanding. Our last full length record came out in 2018, and a lot of that was recorded back in Memphis at the studio where we did those first recordings as Smalltown Poets. It was very nostalgic for us,
Very
but
fun.
we feel so connected to a lot of those people that used to be there are gone now, but we feel so connected to that early history because I don't know, there was something special and magical, like you're talking about, Dave, about the way the Lord brought those people into our lives, like producers and record label people, and it just all clicked at once. Because a lot of bands have great music, but it just doesn't all click, and it
Yeah.
just kind of all clicked for us at that time.
And I would say that, Danny used the word clarity, and I I think sometimes as followers of Jesus, people who are trying to be sensitive to the leading of the Holy Spirit, um, we sometimes go into that with high trepidation.
Yeah.
When we even talk about that sort of thing, because we don't want to assume too much, but we don't want to assume too little.
Yeah.
And lots of us learned what it meant to be following God's will, different kind of languages, different nuances of all of that. But I do want to say this: when Danny uses that word clarity, I think as a band we can all agree on that, and it was a sense of clarity that we got to as a community of people together. It's the kind of clarity that you don't get being, the solo one man show, one
Yeah.
woman show, just trying to do life on your own terms, your own way. Like that point in our story, we had some of the most crystal clear clarity that we've had. And a big part of that, it was because when you're in community, you can find that clarity together.
Well, you've said a couple of things that have kind of spurred me to this next question. You've talked about the clarity of being a group together. You've also talked about resetting, and in 2004, you guys took a reset. Was that a was that another one of these clarity things of we need to step back and revisit what God's having us do, or how did that 6 year hiatus take place?
A good bit of it is just some of the turns and twists of life and seasons of life. About that time, I had been married for a couple of years, and we had my wife Amy and I had had our first child, and we were expecting our second child, and traveling was becoming harder,
Absolutely.
not just because of that, but it seems like a lot of things were working against the traveling musician at that point in time.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, Fuel prices were getting higher. Lots of things were shifting around, and it was the music business changed, and it changed in such a way that it became difficult to continue seeing it and interacting with the way that things were set up. The climate, the machine, if you will,
Yeah.
of what it looked like to create music, record it, release it. There was so much that was shifting with that, and it just seemed wise to take some time. And also, I think our personal passions were changing and growing in that season. All of us have, we mentioned it before, all of us had a heart for the local church, and each of us kind of found a way to plug in on that level. And that was about the time where, um, you'd gone from our early experience as teenagers
Yeah.
who were trying to help um, reshape what music could look like for expressions of faith and worship in the church. And then by 2004, just about every church had a worship band,
Right.
right?
Right.
And so we were each at places where we could come in with a little bit of experience under our belts and help disciple people in that in a local church context.
So the direction that God was leading you was still the same thing, but he was bringing it back internally to your local church bodies and using your talents there.
Yeah.
So was it just, hey, we've got this great group of guys and we want to make a Christmas album? Is that what brought you back together, or was there kind of a defining moment that said, this season of life is leading us towards doing an album again?
So, Danny, you can agree or disagree with this. I don't know if we've ever talked about this. I'll start by speaking for myself, and then I will project my point of view onto other people. I'm not much of a planner. I'm
Ah,
not a great planner. So, years go by, and we're talking to each other, and we're like, "Hey, we got to get together." Oh yeah, it's always you got to get together. When are we going to get together? Let's get together.
more as just to hang out, not necessarily to make music, right?
Right.
Yeah.
And a couple of us might get together here and there. Families come to visit each other. We had some great moments of that. But I think we finally were like, okay, it's Danny. He's like, I got this. I've got an idea for an arrangement of "In the Bleak Midwinter." It's a Christmas song. He's
Right.
like, Danny's always loved Christmas music. As a matter of fact, the first public performance Danny and I ever had was at the National Guard Armory in Tipton, Georgia. We played a Christmas party for the National Guardsmen there. And so some of the first music we played together was Christmas music.
Fun.
And Danny's like, really, I've been wanting to do some Christmas stuff for a long time. Here's this "In the Bleak Midwinter." And all of us heard the arrangement, on the demo he had made. And we're like, yeah, that's great. We can all just record our parts and jump in there. And we had so much fun and success with that, that we're like, yeah, before next Christmas, we got to do a full project. And that was the thing that really helped us, I think, uh, make a plan, put some dates on the calendar, um, and hold each other accountable to getting some stuff done before those dates came.
Yeah, it's true. We did a Christmas tour that year and have been playing together ever since. I mean, we're not touring full time, and we certainly haven't done much this year because of
Oh,
COVID. But
sure.
yeah, in your typical year, we're out there playing from time to time throughout the year, and we almost always do some kind of little Christmas tour, even if it's only 5 or 10 shows, because we got a lot of Christmas material now. We've got
Yeah.
some different singles out there and a couple of full length Christmas albums too.
One of the things that I noticed is a couple of the recent, I think, EPs and stuff that you've been worked at. Danny, your son has been in part of the product.
Yeah, and the amazing thing about that is my son is only 6 years old.
Well, he's a, what do they call it?
He's a prodigy.
Prodigy, yeah.
Prodigy, yeah,
He's a prodigy.
yeah. No, Noah started playing with us and traveling with us when he was about 14, and just kind of became the fifth Beatle. He's usually just lurking behind the scenes somewhere, and so as he's gotten older and has become a legitimate producer with his own studio and all this equipment and gear, and he is also he's been right there in the studio with us, learning from other producers like Matt Goldman,
Hmm.
who's produced a lot of our stuff. So he's been able to be tutored by some of these guys, and now he's 24 years old now, and he's he's the one that's mixing our record right now, and he's the new one that's coming out, and he's the one that produced it, and he's very gifted at that.
So question is, do you have any buttons left on any of your shirts, or have you popped them all from being so proud?
I know, right? That's I am definitely proud of him, and I feel good about the work too. I can't wait for everybody to hear this new record. I think people are going to like it.
Well, let's dig into that a little bit more. You've teased it a couple of times. You've got a new album that you're planning to release here this year. Talk a little bit about kind of the theme of the album and where you hope to take this project.
Yeah. a lot of what we've been talking about already, there are some of the themes that we continue to write about. We're very often thinking about how great it is for us to have these friendships with each other and with others that God's brought into our path that shape our experience. So there are themes of community, themes of friendship, themes of iron sharpening iron. It's life experience. It's us wrestling with things that that we're really wrestling with in life. Some questions about what it looks like to be a follower of Jesus in 2021, and that's all vague, right? So you'll really need to listen to the songs to hear the specifics of that. But those are some of the general themes and the reason behind why we feel like we still have something to say and want to say it is that we're grateful to God. A lot of it is gratitude to God for His faithfulness in our lives, and that sometimes comes out in us saying, we're thankful for your faithfulness. But sometimes it comes out in other ways. It's expressed in other ways. It's expressed in us singing about something like, there's one song where we're just celebrating the gift that it is to get to play music. There's a song called "The Stuff We Love" that's on this new record. That's just celebrating the gift that we have to be able to express ourselves, and even if it's not always specifically as a worship moment, as a worship song, that all that we do can be, an expression of our gratitude to God. Just, like Matthew 5 talks about, just letting our light shine so that people can see what's coming out of our lives and bring glory to God.
Michael used the word shaped earlier, and I'm sitting here looking at the track listing that we use in the studio with, just you check off boxes as every little thing gets done. So I'm looking at this list of songs, and it definitely, one of the themes is definitely how God has shaped us, is shaping us through very real experiences, some of which are good, like Michael said, some of which are bad, or which at least seem bad at the time. They hurt. I'm looking at one song that I think will probably be the last song on the album, and it's called right now 27. I don't know if that's going to be the title or not, but because it's loosely based on Psalm, it's not so loosely based on Psalm 27, and the chorus to this song, part of it says, "I know who you are." It's us talking to the Father. "I know who you are, and I know who you've always been. So come sing over me, so I can breathe again." And that is kind of 2020 in a nutshell, right? It's like we're just trying to breathe. It's just been a difficult year for a lot of us, and but I see faithfulness in so many of these songs, and I hope that's what people take away from it is hope, because a lot of people I know have had a rough go of it, and this record, I believe, reflects hope.
Well, it's interesting. I'm very aware of the fact that some of the best songs come out of the angst and of the hardships of life. And they come out of our wrestling with how do we deal with these situations, whether it's a financial or a health or a relationship that's not gone well. And I've been very aware recently of the fact that, God says He works all things together for good. He doesn't say He makes them easy. And a lot of times that struggle and that tension and that angst, as you said, Danny, is where we grow the most.
Mm-hmm. That's true. That's true. I mean, I'm learning that every day, my friend. I really am. And I Michael and I have said it in every interview we've ever done, so I'm going to go ahead and say it right now. Good writing is honest writing.
Yes.
That was taught to us by the teacher that brought us together. The way we got to know each other in high school was that our teacher put us on a project together in our creative writing class, or maybe it was English. No, it was creative writing. And And he taught us a lot of good stuff that we still use. And one of the main things is good writing is honest writing.
Yeah.
So that's, you're talking about writing out of the pain of heartbreak. That's what King David did. And we can all, as songwriters, we can just learn a lot from being honest about what it is we're going through, because people relate to that and they connect with your story.
Well, and the hurt of life, I had, and listeners to the podcast will remember this story, but I had a counselor one time who was a championship weightlifter, and he was like 80 years old and had records in his category for the bench press. But he said, you don't have muscle growth unless you have muscle pain. And so the whole fact that pain actually brings about growth, and so much in our society, I think we try to skirt, oh, how can I do stuff to not hurt? But the hurt is where the growth comes.
Right. Absolutely. It is no pain, no gain. Right.
Yeah, that's a saying because it's true.
And as Christians, the thing that we don't want to remember, or the thing that's hard for us to remember sometimes when we're experiencing that hurt, is to reflect on the cross. And when we do that, that's when we can really get a perspective of what hope looks like, and we can choose hope. And there's some of us, even people who have been lifelong followers of Jesus, come to points where it just starts to seem too hard for them, and old doubts creep back in. There may be some questions that get reframed that we thought we had answers to, and instead of looking to the cross, instead of looking to Jesus and what he taught and what he tried to prepare us for, we start listening to other voices, and can kind of get stuck in that place of hurt. But if we will humble ourselves to take another look at the cross, and if we'll let the lens of our life be refocused through that point of view, then it brings hope back into focus, and it brings hope back in as an option, and not just an option, but as a reality, as the most probably the most likely reality.
Well, as the solution.
Exactly, the most likely reality, because the hope that the cross prepares us for is the resurrection.
Yeah.
And we don't have the resurrection without the cross.
Yeah.
So if we are able to humble ourselves to look through that lens again, it will bring the resurrection back into focus, and that's the most realistic hope that we can have.
Amen.
You see why I write songs with this guy, right?
He's got some rich stuff. Absolutely. Well, let's look forward this next 21, 22, even the future. Where is God leading you guys, either collectively as a band or individually? What is he laying on your hearts as the passion cry for this next season?
Well, we don't have any plans to stop doing what we're doing. As a matter of fact, we're trying to put out music on a more regular basis. We're all involved in our churches, playing worship music, or in my case, I'm the worship leader. I think for me, and I think for all of these guys, but I'll definitely speak for myself, I just want to be faithful, and I want to be more like Christ this year than I was last year or the year before that. And hopefully, I'm pretty new to this area where I'm living in St. Augustine, Florida, and hopefully plug more and more into my church community and into this community, and hopefully just be used of God. But collectively, I think our best stuff is, I hope people hear the stuff we put out in 2021 and say, like we feel like, this is our best stuff we've ever put out.
Yeah, I agree with that. This past year has given us some time to get some things in place to make the creative process a little bit, I don't know about easier, but to at least have a plan for it and have a little infrastructure built for it. So we do feel realistic about our goals to continue to create music and release it. We don't know what's going to happen with live performance. We don't depend on touring for income. So we don't carve out as much of our year for that
Right.
sort of thing, but we do have some dates on the calendar that got shifted from last year to this year. We hope we get to do those things, and we hope we get to add to that a little bit. Um, certainly, we certainly love those opportunities
Yeah.
to play together. Um, for all the reasons that we've already talked about, and also because it means we can probably find a disc golf course somewhere. Um, all of us have sort of independently found uh, a kind of a love for this burgeoning sport, and it's been around for a long time. But especially with our options for getting together, being centered around things outdoors,
Yeah.
disc golf has been great. And so, part of my goal for this year is to be able to outdrive Noah. He's got that young energy and flexibility, and I occasionally can drop one close to where his is, but I don't know that I've been able to outdrive him yet. But yeah, that's one of the things that we do for fun. We've always kind of had hobbies like that on the road for a while. We were kind of known as the wiffle ball band because everywhere we would go, we had the wiffle ball and bat with us, and we were trying to get a pickup game together with whoever was helping us load in at the venue.
Oh, how fun.
Then disc golf has kind of taken up some of that space. But yeah, part of my passion is helping people find the kind of clarity that we've been talking about.
Yeah.
And it doesn't happen in all phases of life, as crystal clear clarity of what it looks like to be using your passions and your gifts and the things that the Lord has given you, your opportunities together. But a friend of mine has developed with the team that he's on this gospel-centered life design called Unique. It's YOUNIQUE,
Okay.
Unique.
Yeah.
And one of the things that I love about this unique process that helps people find some clarity about God's calling and His direction for their lives is this. There's a part of it that's a challenge, and it's based on this legend of Hemingway walking down the street, and a woman recognizes him as being the famous author, and she gives him this challenge of telling a story in 6 words. You can look up that legend, and I won't finish out that story, but so that idea of a 6-word story finds its way into this unique process, and that's one of the things that I've done in being a part of that is come up with 6 words that are sort of like a reminder to me of what my calling is. And so I would phrase it like this, that Michael Johnston has been created by God to glorify Him and serve others by shifting skewed gazes towards worthy aims. So that would be my 6-word story: shifting skewed gazes towards worthy aims. And that's more for me. I know what that means. Each word is chosen specifically, but for me in 2021, I want to lean more and more into helping people find that clarity, whether it's writing songs and playing music, or whether it's through coaching. I'm on staff at a local church here in Gwinnett County, Georgia, where I am. And that's one of the things that I get to do as a part of my role there. So that's what, if I had a word to go along with that,
Yeah.
I'm really, like probably many of us are, really longing and craving relationship and time with other people. So friendship is another word that's come to mind for me for this year.
Yeah. Well, one of the things that I've found interesting over the past few months is the kind of the core of the word community is unity.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And that's what our world needs so badly right now. And I think that's developed by, like you said, those friendships, spending time together, flipping a disc around together.
Yeah. And some of those things that we learned early on in our story are really serving us well at this point in our lives, because, a lot of our spiritual growth came from having relationships and friendships with people who thought differently, had different experience than we did. So that's one of the things that's really helping us, I think, in our friendships and in what God's calling us into is seeking out those conversations with people that we might disagree with, but we can still find unity with.
Well, one of the things that we do every Saturday, we send out a prayer newsletter to a bunch of folks who've agreed to pray for musicians. What specifically can we be praying for Smalltown Poets over the next couple of months?
Gosh, that's an honor to be prayed for in that way. So that's, first of all, thank you for doing that and spearheading that. That's awesome. Maybe what comes to mind is that along the way for us in the creative process, in putting final touches on things, as well as starting the process, that there are obstacles that come up along the way. Sometimes you foresee those things, sometimes you don't. So they're just maybe a good thing to ask people to pray for Smalltown Poets in this season would just be for God to go ahead and even if the obstacles can't be cleared out of our path, just to make a way for things to move forward in the timing that will bring Him glory and in the way that it'll bring Him the most glory.
I appreciate Danny and Michael sharing about their intentionality of seeking God's perspective in life. And you know what else helps bring things into perspective? Prayer. Taking our concerns before the Father and letting Him know that there are areas where we need His divine intervention, protection, provision, and direction. The Apostle Paul wrote in many of his letters that he was praying for the people he interacted with. In Ephesians, for example, Paul says, "I pray for you constantly, asking God to give you spiritual wisdom." In his letter to the Philippians, he prays for their love to overflow more and more, and that they will keep on growing in the knowledge and understanding. In Galatians, Paul writes that we should share each other's burdens and, in this way, obey the law of Christ. So I think Paul thinks prayer is a pretty big deal. Maybe we should too. That is why I'm committed to praying for the people who make the music I enjoy. Each week, I send out a prayer newsletter featuring an artist each day that we can pray for. We pray for God's protection. We pray that their concerts and music are anointed by God. We pray for health. We pray for other concerns of finances and so forth. And I'm asking you to join me in praying each day. To do that, I'm inviting you to sign up for my weekly prayer newsletter. It's an email that I send every Saturday, and you can sign up for it on our website, thechristianmusicarchive.com. Down in the footer there, you'll find a form, or you can also go to the prayer page, which is christianmusicarchive.com/prayer, which lists those prayer requests, but you can sign up for the list there as well. Ultimately, my desire is to cover these artists with prayer so that they can be effective in sharing God's love to those who are listening. So, won't you join me today? Sign up at christianmusicarchive.com, and let's pray together for all of these great men and women. As always, thanks for joining me for this conversation today. I am grateful that we get to spend this time together each week hearing stories of God's amazing faithfulness. As a regular listener to this podcast, would you mind taking a few minutes and rating it on your favorite podcast app? Reviews and ratings really help spread the word so that other folks can hear about these great conversations. And if you have comments or questions for me, please feel free to drop me a message on any of the social media platforms. You can find me on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and Patreon by searching for @CCMExchange. Or you can always drop me an email on the website christianmusicarchive.com. I'm really looking forward to our time together next week when I have another great conversation with one of the musicians you'll find on the pages of the Christian Music Archive. So until then, remember this: God loves you. In fact, He's crazy about you.